Boom! Welcome into SportsBit 2.0. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com. Pauly and Teddy. Eastern Conference playoff preview coming up. We don't have series lines yet. We'll get to a couple future odds and go rapid fire with the four matchups coming up. Sixers, 16 wins in a row. We'll go through that and the play of the day. We'll also turn the shot clock on about a potential first-round upset. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. You never want the dog in overtime. A tough beat here if you had the under. The T-Wolf Denver game, the play-in game, only the third time since 1984. It was 101 in regulation. Goes over by a bucket. The total was 214.5 up to 216.5 in some spots. T-Wolves were up 8. They were up 10. Then it got close in the fourth quarter. But the T-Wolves made all the plays down the stretch, and they win by 6, and they are the 8th seed now in the West.
Yeah, I mean, the playoffs started in Minnesota last night. The teams got after it for real in that ball game. Let's give Denver credit. They fought the good fight. Nuggets plus 3.5. In theory, that's a right side. Game's tied at the end of regulation. Under, tied at 101 all at the end of regulation. That's supposed to be a right side. Huh? We can call it a bad beat on the total. We can probably call it a bad beat on the side. Nuggets and under turns to T-Wolves and over in the extra session. Tough beat for those who got involved.
I saw this as high as 7. This was but 5.5 down to 2.5. The Raptors went for it and played people last night. And the Heat, tough one here because it went to overtime, and they won by 7 in overtime as Ellington had 32 points.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the books kind of got bailed out in that contest. Heavy Toronto money. Toronto led by 7 in the fourth. I was really surprised to see Miami go for it and then find a way, after all the tanking and losses that they'd suffered, to see the Heat come and rally back and play to win and win in overtime to hurt their playoff seeding. It was a bit of a head scratcher, but ended up being a pretty good result for the bookmaker.
Yeah, the Heat won that game. I don't know if I didn't say get that backwards. Yeah. Bad bets. The Rays plus 108 went off a $1.20 favorite. Shields walked the ballpark in the first couple innings. Got people out though. Is in trouble, but got out of it. 2-1 White Sox win.
Yeah, I mean the bettors literally feel like they've been waiting all winter to bet against James Shields. Every start, Shields, the money's poured in against him again yesterday. But that new sidearm delivery, he 1-0. The White Sox 2-1 in his starts. They faded Shields yesterday. Bettors paid the price as a result.
Yes, and this one, Mariners Royals over 7.5, steamed up to 8.5. Doesn't matter about the win when the batters strike out 22 times. And this was horrible. Greek Freak was doubtful. Then he played. Reddick didn't play for the Sixers. Bucks from 8 down to 6. How about down 30 points in the first quarter? That's the first time that's happened in 4 years. The Sixers had 80 points at the half. They are the 3 seed as they run out Milwaukee.
Yeah, and that game was over real early, and bettors got this one completely wrong. Money comes in on Milwaukee. Oh, Greek Freak's playing. Okay, no Embiid, no Reddick. Doesn't matter. The Sixers' first quarter cashes again, 46-18 after 1. The Sixers for the game, right side winner. Never in doubt. Bettors got this one wrong. Bookmakers cleaned up as a result.
Yeah, look at this move. The Nets were a 3-point dog, went off a 4-point favorite in Boston. They lost by double digits in that one. What was that all about?
I was on Brooklyn. Some of my money was the wrong side in that one. Brad Stevens really didn't have anyone to work with, but he had Aaron Baines, and Baines went nuts. He's only started there played. He went less than 21 minutes. What did he finish? 26-14. Boston was impressive. Their depth was impressive last night. And there was a little bit more intensity from the Celtics than I expected. Brad Stevens really didn't want his squad to go into the playoffs on a losing streak, even though they were on the second of back-to-backs. I understood the Brooklyn money. I had some of that Brooklyn money. I was wrong.
Yeah, all right, bad for the books. There was a lot here in baseball. We'll get to some more big moves in the NBA. We'll start with the Braves. $1.25 down to 110. Beat the Nats in extra innings. They made it interesting by blowing the lead a couple times. Brewers plus 150 down to 130. They beat the Cardinals 3-2. Wainwright still shaky. And a 30-cent move on the Orioles. $1.05 up to 135. They beat the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing some questions from Atlanta's bullpen, which is overachieved early. They blew a lead in the 9th. They blew a lead in the 11th. They still won the game, but it made totals better sweat for sure. Money's been coming in against Adam Wainwright. Wainwright was a really popular play back in the day. The wise guys loved him. That's no longer the case. Good control yesterday, but he did give up a pair of dingers against Milwaukee. And we're starting to see some anti-Estrada money in the markets.
All right.
Baltimore steamed up in that ball game against Toronto. I think there may be more anti-Estrada money to come in the weeks that follow.
All right, let's get some more fun in the NBA here. Look at this. The Knicks from 15 down to 8. They opened 11-1 on the money line. No Corver, no Hood, no Love, and LeBron only played to keep the double-digit streak alive. Knicks were up 20. They win by double digits. The Kings, the Rockets open a 4.5-point favorite. In some spots, the Kings went off a 2.5-point favorite as the Rockets sat everybody, and the Kings won by 13. And the Pistons, from 1.5 up to 5, routed the Bulls.
Yeah, I mean, look, when money's pouring in on the Knicks against the Cavs, when money's pouring in on the Kings against the Rockets, when both of those moves turn out to be right side winners, you know what day it is. It can only be game number 82 of the NBA season when neither Cleveland nor Houston was particularly interested.
And one more from hockey, game 1. The Jets get the win at home against the Wild. They went $1.70 up to $1.90 in Vegas, and they outshot the Wild 40-20 in that one. So they lead that series 1-0. Little steam there on the Jets. Nice effort by the Flyers last night, too. Jesus, 7-0. Up next, Eastern Conference preview. We'll start with the Raptors and the Wizards in the 1-8, and we'll go through the updated future book on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Make sure you follow us on Twitter. I'm at Real SportsBit. He's at Teddy_Covers. We'll turn the shot clock on coming up next. Eastern Conference preview. Western Conference, obviously, tomorrow. We have no lines, no series prices yet. The 1-8 matchup, Toronto against Washington. What a disaster for the Wizards down the stretch. Remember when all that talk about they were better when Wall got hurt? Bunch of bunk. Lowry and DeRozan well rested now. Great graphic to start here with the minutes per game as they've gone down big time the last couple of years. They have a great bench. They have depth. They have a sneaky good lineup when they go small with Van Vliet and Ibaka that they haven't used a lot, which I know Casey has sit on. So playoff tested, the 1 seed with depth and rest is supposed to be a team I fear. What do you think of this matchup here? Toronto is plus $1.20 at William Hill to win the East.
Yeah, I'm not in any rush to be betting the Raptors at that price, despite the fact that this is the best Toronto team that we've seen in recent years.
Yep.
Despite the fact that they come into the postseason, and you showed that graphic, with Lowry, a good 5 minutes per game less this year than last year. DeRozan's number of minutes per game also significantly down from a season ago. So all the things point toward, this is a 59-win team, a number 1 seed in the East. You're supposed to say, we trust this squad. The quote from DeRozan, quote, we didn't get 59 wins for no reason. The hunger, the push, the pain of the grind all season, the failures from the previous years, kind of carrying that over. It definitely feels different. The Raptors are saying this year feels different. They better hope so, because when you look at this graphic, there's no way you'll be laying points with Toronto in this series. Look at the numbers. Dwayne Casey and the Raptors in the postseason. They've been each of the last 4 years. The best postseason against the spread was 35% ATS. They have 6 straight-up losses at home in the first home game of a series in 7 series. 5 of those came as chalk. 12, 27, and 2 ATS in the playoffs under Casey. That, sir, is a track record of not just failure, abject failure. How much of that is buy? I mean, is there going to be anti-Toronto bias in the markets because of that? Is this year's team different? The markets, I don't think they think so just yet, Pauly. I really don't.
Yeah. I think it's a different team with a great bench. And 2 years ago, it was a good season, successful season. They went to the conference finals. They lost in 6, but all those Cleveland wins were blowouts. Last year was a debacle, a total abomination. They were swept, and they were never in any of those games against Cleveland. Now you wonder with Washington, with the chemistry, if these guys can't stand each other. You get a fresh John Wall, but the team never got back in sync when he came back. They swept Toronto in 2015. That's when Toronto gave up on that series after Washington won the first two on the road. They got large contracts. I thought it was a bright future, and they blew it last year. Let's be honest. They were better than the Celtics. They should have won that series. Kelly Olynyk went crazy in Game 7, so instead of going to the conference finals, they get beat, and now here they are. It's a terrible season that they're an 8 seed. Underachieved big time.
Sure, and again, since the All-Star break, this is a Wizards team that's 10-15 straight up, 10-14-1 against the spread. Money losers, period. And you look at the back half of the campaign, I didn't like the way they came together or didn't come together once John Wall came back. It kind of felt like these guys were sick of one another. And Washington, like Toronto last year, is a legit 1-2-3 Cancun threat. I don't know the Wizards are going to bring it here. But one thing the Wizards have done, even though they've only won 10 games since the All-Star break, 9 of those 10 wins came against playoff teams. They've been beating good teams, capable of beating good teams throughout this stretch. The Celtics twice, the Pacers, the Spurs, the Pelicans, Miami, Milwaukee, Philly, Cleveland. These are straight up wins for Washington. Their A game's good enough to hang with anyone. We haven't seen a whole lot of that A game, unfortunately, over the back half of the campaign.
All right, here's the 2-7 matchup. This is intriguing. Boston against Milwaukee. It's a coaching mismatch here with Stevens against Sprunty. Celtics are 18-1 to win the East at William Hill. Doesn't look like Smart's going to be available. We know Kyrie's out for the year. It's a coaching mismatch, but Milwaukee, they limp to the finish line, but they have the better players.
And that's the irony. I mean, you look at the Celtics. Who do the Celtics got? They got Al Horford as the guy. And Horford spent his whole career, even back with the Florida Gators, and he was winning titles. He was always the number 2, the number 3 guy. He's never been the guy. He's got the experience. The go-to player on offense? I'm not so sure. Boston's numbers with him on and off the court, pretty significant. The offense takes the hit when Al Horford isn't there. Now, you talk about the matchup and the coaching issue here. And yeah, Joe Prunty, you look at that picture of him, you're like, this guy against Brad Stevens? I'm not buying it. But you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. When you talk about which team has more talent, not the favorite, not the home team. You grade out the talent for these two squads and who's the best player on the floor. Milwaukee has all of that. That being said, Brad Stevens sure gets the most out of his talent. We talked about Aaron Bynes at the top of the show. 26-14 last night, practically killed my bet single-handedly. Brad Stevens gets those type of efforts and performances from the guys, his role players. That hasn't always happened for the Milwaukee Bucks role players.
That's what was supposed to happen with Milwaukee. They were supposed to have a bright future. They're supposed to contend in the East. Jabari Parker came back. You trade for Bledsoe. You had the Rookie of the Year, Brogdon, from last year. You got Greek Freak. Defense has been horrible as they limp into the 7. So, hey, 76ers, Celtics, Bucks, Heat. Someone's going to the Eastern Conference Finals out of that group. And with Boston, look how things have changed in a year. Last year, Eastern Conference Finals, Bradley, Smart, Crowder, Olynyk, Horford, Rozier, Green, and Zeller. Only Horford and Rozier are left with the team and playing, or at least healthy. Smart's not healthy, and the other guys have gone or gone elsewhere and not playing. So that's big with how Stevens. I mean, Rozier and Brownie are go-to guys now, along with Horford. So we'll see if the Greek Freak's good enough to take care of this coaching mismatch, and if Milwaukee can make some plays and get some stops. I'll tell you, this is going to be fascinating what they do with the series price in this one. I don't know how high you put up. You can't make Boston too high, right? Because you're going to get Milwaukee money.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fascinating series, and there may be edges here for the Milwaukee Bucks. Look, since the All-Star break, we've been fairly critical of the Bucks. One thing they've done, they've won on the road. They won straight up as dogs against the Raptors, against the Sixers, against the Spurs, against the Warriors. They played the Celtics last week at home. Ended up pushing against the closing number. Milwaukee, 38 of 59 from two-point range. They got good looks throughout the course of the game. This is a Bucks team that last year had a 2-1 series lead in the first round against the Raptors and then lost the last 3. So they have playoff experience, and they have playoff veterans, the likes of Jason Terry and Tyler Zeller and Eric Bledsoe, guys who've been around. Jason Terry, talking about the Celtics injuries, quote, doesn't mean a thing. If you think just because they don't have Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward and Marcus Smart, they're going to go and walk through a Boston Celtics team, you're crazy. That's one of the loudest, rowdiest crowds ever at playoff time.
Yeah.
Milwaukee's got some things to like. We'll see how bad the edges are for Prunty versus Stevens as the series goes from game to game. But I worry about the Bucks' ability to match the Celtics' adjustments. From a talent standpoint, Milwaukee may well be an attractively priced underdog.
Yeah. That's the early game Sunday, game one in that matchup. This is Saturday night, game one. The 76ers at home against Miami, the 3 against the 6. Wasn't that long ago that the Sixers were 30-1 to win the East? They're now 5-1 at William Hill. That's what a 16-game winning streak will do for you. And it's a tough, quite the conundrum for odds makers with the series price about when does Embiid come back. But I'm pleasantly surprised I was wrong. The numbers were so bad with Embiid on the bench and when he doesn't play. But when he went down, they went 8-0 straight up and 5-3 ATS. And 2 of the losses were bad beats. We mentioned the Dallas one where Barnes laid it in twice late and the Sixers dribbled it out. 112 points per 100 possessions on offense. The acquisition of Ilyasova and Bellinelli. Redick has been Superman, and Ben Simmons averaging a triple-double during the winning streak. The last time that happened was Oscar Robertson. So this team is dangerous. And the home court, 16 in a row. I would throw out what happened when these teams met in the regular season, as it was a while ago with Miami. But once Embiid comes back, this team's a powerhouse. That's why you tank. You got to love the process in Philadelphia.
That being said, Embiid may or may not be back for this series, which makes it somewhat difficult for the books to price appropriately. And let's get that graphic up there one more time, where you see that 8-0 straight up, 5-3 against the spread, and the plus 15.5 net points per 100 possessions. The fact is, something's happening in Philadelphia now that wasn't happening earlier in the year. And that's they're starting to lose games by a hook, and by 1.5 points, and by 2 points against the spread, where it's clear markets have caught up with them. Finally, when you talk about 2 of the 3 ATS losses, legit bad beats, all 3 point spread losses came by a combined 4.5 points. I worry about that for Philadelphia. I worry about the markets having fallen in love with this team a little bit too much right now. And of course, it is a Sixers team. We know about the first quarter runs. The experience level. J.J. Redick, 88 career playoff games. Amir Johnson, too. He's an Eastern Conference playoff veteran. He played with the Pistons, the Raptors. He's been doing it so long, the Pistons were relevant in Eastern Conference Finals team every year when he got there. Amir Johnson, a playoff veteran. Marco Bellinelli won a title with San Antonio. So some of the moves the Sixers have made have really set them up nicely with a veteran core to help the young guys in their first playoff run.
Well, this is cause for concern with the Heat. Where are they at? Because they struggled down the stretch. And they had to go to overtime last night in a game they had to have to beat Toronto, who had nothing to play for. But 2-12 straight up their last 14 road games going back to January. The wins are against Atlanta and the Lakers. Mercy. But some of the losses were close. And they also blew a big lead against Philly, one of the games, too, on the road. But you wonder about the chemistry when Whiteside ripped the coaching staff when they sat him in a fourth quarter and didn't play. But we'll see if they can test the Sixers' playoff inexperience here.
Sure. And again, we talk about Philly as potentially a team that's a little bit overvalued right now, where the markets are white hot on the Sixers. Here's Miami. And I don't know if you're going to see this. And it's 2-12 straight up, last 14 on the road. Say, oh my God, the Heat, game 1, game 2, they can't compete with these guys. Well, when you look at the graphic, all these are against playoff teams, and all of these are tight games. We're losing by 6, losing by 4. They lose, but they lose close games. They played 3 times in the last 2 months since Embiid got hurt. Miami 2-1 straight up, 1-1 against the spread. Eric Spoelstra, quote, "We had some crazy games where both teams lost big leads and lost it. This is what you want." The 3-6 matchup is usually very competitive. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this 3-6 matchup, Pauly, being a little bit more competitive than bettors might think, especially we talk about Eric Spoelstra, guy with rings, against a guy with no playoff experience whatsoever, and Coach Brown for Philadelphia.
And one more, the Cavs and the Pacers, the 4-5 matchup. The big losers last night, the Raptors, because they're going to get LeBron in the second round likely. Although the Pacers won the season series 3-1 against Cleveland. He led the league in minutes played. He doesn't miss games. He doesn't seem like run out of gas or get tired. I can't believe it. 15 straight seasons of at least 3,000 minutes, counting the playoffs. 7 straight seasons of at least 763 playoff minutes. And 5 trips to the finals in those 7. Although he's been a 1 or a 2 seed, now he's the 4. And I think the only time we've had a team win the title, a 4 seed or worse, was the Olajuwon team with the Rockets. And it comes down to this. They had the 3rd worst defense in the league. They were also a disaster ATS. We'll see now if the Cavs can flip the switch.
Yeah, and I mean, the Cavs played decent ball down the stretch. Not like they played terrible going into the postseason. Like the Wizards would have to flip the switch right now. Cleveland was good. They just weren't elite. We talked about the series sweep last year where the Cavs swept them out of the playoffs. That's pretty irrelevant. 6 of the 10 starters between the two teams are new. You talk about LeBron and the ridiculous minutes count. That 15 straight seasons of at least 3,000 minutes, counting the playoffs. It's insane. The last 7, you're talking about 700 minutes, extra minutes in the postseason, 5 trips to the finals the last 7 years. And then the guy's not human. He's flat out not human. And when you look at the minutes per game in the postseason numbers, you're like, oh my God. Very impressive. So you say, here's LeBron. This is what he does. Cleveland can go bombs away from anywhere. But Indiana, maybe there's some edges here. You talked about the fact they won the season series. 3 wins over the Cavs this year. You talked about the defensive numbers. And again, full season numbers, significant differential between the two squads. Indiana number 12, Cleveland number 29. You talk about the matchups. Who on Cleveland stops Oladipo? Not like they have that elite wing stopper. That could be a matchup problem for Cleveland. And let's not forget Lance Stevenson blowing in LeBron's ear. I'm telling you, Pauly, Lance Stevenson, an energy guy off the bench for Indiana. Don't underestimate him in this series. He'll be a factor in at least one game. Of course, he was minus 23 and plus minus in 33 minutes in their no-show loss to Charlotte in the season finale.
Yep. We'll clean one thing up here because things changed in the last couple of days of the season. Cleveland, 2nd worst defense in the league, only ahead of Phoenix. Wow. 109.5 allowed points per 100 possessions. That is staggering. Up next, we'll try to pick up upset in the first round of the East. West tomorrow, obviously. We'll do that. We'll turn the shot clock on and play of the day next on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping up on SportsBit, Betting Insight today at Real SportsBit on Twitter. He's at Teddy_covers. Cavs $1.10, by the way, to win the East at William Hill. All right, time to turn the shot clock on. There's a dog that's live in the East. I'll go with the Heat. If they can get Whiteside, maybe can contain Embiid. If Embiid comes back, Spoelstra's an excellent coach, one of the best underrated coaches in the NBA, and they could give 76ers fits. Maybe the playoff and experience could get him there as well. You could get a juicy return on that price with that series price as well. I don't have much to work with because I don't like Washington. I don't like the Pacers. So I'll take that one as a possible upset or a dog. And remember, if they could get Boston in the second round too, so Miami could be live.
Sure, they could if Boston gets to the second round, because I'm going to take the Milwaukee Bucks as my upset special in the Eastern Conference. And I do think Milwaukee could be live to beat Boston. Throw out the coaches for a minute. Just say, all right, there's no Prunty versus Stevens. You grant the personnel for these two squads. They're edges for Milwaukee. Multiple edges for Milwaukee. If the coaching mismatch doesn't turn out to be quite the coaching mismatch that people think it's going to be, if Greek Freak really is the best player on the floor, Bucks are live to win this series in straight up fashion. Yeah, I'll say Milwaukee is a live dog in the Eastern Conference.
All right, money time, play of the day. Back to Sixers and Heat. Projected line, what do you want to do? Game 1.
Sure, let's take a look at that again. Well, right now we're working. We really don't have lines to talk about. So I'm going to throw a projected line out there. We think the total for Miami, Philadelphia should come in the range of 215.5. I'd be surprised if it comes significantly away from that number. And given 215.5, we're talking about two squads that are bringing it on the offensive end. Miami slashers work against Philadelphia. Philadelphia's jump shooters and low post takers work against Miami. I see points in this series. I see points in this game. Look for Miami and Philadelphia to go over the total in game one. That's our play of the day.
All right. How about the matchups in the West? We'll get to that tomorrow. And the Rockets $1.10 to win the title. Believe it. It's coming up tomorrow on SportsBit 2.0. Betting insight today on SPRPicks.com. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.